thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy day to be here with us today. We really appreciate it. My name is Adrienne Montgomery, and I am with ERP VAR. We are a company that works with Acumatica and with Aqurus. We've been working with Aqurus for several years. I will be moderating the webinar today. And once again, thank you for joining us. We're talking about Acumatica and Aqurus and Envent and how to modernize manufacturing, inventory control, order processing, and customer service. And I'm so pleased to be joined today by Andy and Brenda with Aqurus. We're going to start with some speaker introductions. We're going to introduce you to Andy, President and CEO of Envent, and Brenda, Customer Management at Aqurus. And we're going to talk a little bit about the agenda today. We're going to review the outcome of Envent's modern cloud ERP implementation. And thank you so much again for joining us. A little bit about Envent. Envent was formed in 2003 with the goal of having its manufactured systems in stock and ready to meet the demand of the natural gas industry. They manufacture H2S and total sulfur analyzers, moisture, CH4, CO2, and O2 monitors, gas chromatographs, and turnable filter spectrometers. They're based in Calgary, and their manufacturing has attained ISO 9001 and 2015 certification, is core certified. I hope I said that right. Envent started with Acumatica in 2019, and they have been constantly pushing the envelope and wanting more functionality from the Acumatica Cloud ERP. And so with that, they're learning and they're integrating their inner departments and making sure that the employees are collaborating with the most up-to-date information. So over the last 2 years, Aqurus has worked together to implement their project accounting module in Acumatica, the CRM, the manufacturing, and product configurator. Through collaboration and teamwork, we have all developed and delivered additional functionality, which is assisting in the management of their day-to-day business and providing a competitive advantage. It's a very competitive manufacturing environment for Envent, and it's crucial that everyone in the company can collaborate and see what others are doing and use that information for their individual jobs without having to process redundant data entry and eliminate that associated human error with redundant data entry. So we're going to get into that a little bit more. And then a little bit about Aqurus. Aqurus delivers cloud enterprise resource planning software solutions to growing manufacturing and distribution companies in Western Canada. And so they really focus their efforts in Calgary, Kelowna, and Burnaby. Aqurus specializes in distribution, e-commerce, manufacturing, and services solutions with a deep experienced team of implementation resources. And so today with Andy, we're not only going to be talking about manufacturing, but also the CRM aspects and distribution. And we're going to get into how the project accounting and CRM kind of touches all of those business processes. Acumatica Cloud ERP is a leading cloud business management software provider that empowers small and mid-sized businesses to reach their potential and drive growth. Acumatica delivers fully integrated ERP applications powered by our robust and flexible platform built on the world's best cloud and mobile technology. So you can access it from mobile devices anywhere. You can see the data that you need to see to perform your job out in the field, whether you're servicing your equipment out in the field or whether you're just working from home. You can capitalize on all that information that's available in Acumatica. So a little bit about Brenda from Aqurus. Brenda has 40 years experience in the oil and gas industry. So along with Andy, they have a depth of understanding of drilling, production, exploration, finance, human resources, corporate services. Brenda has 30 plus years of various IT roles, including, but not limited to, end user support, application support, and data management, project management, customer management. She's been all over the world, England, The Hague, the US, and Indonesia. So she knows the industry that Andy's in, but also knows distribution, manufacturing, and the CRM functionality that Andy critically relies on in his day-to-day, but also how it might be applied to other industries as well. She wears two hats. She's customer manager and project manager. And she always wants to make sure it's a win-win for everyone, because everyone needs to be able to play a part in projects and also see it through from everyone's perspective. So she's passionate about delivering high quality work, and she meets customer needs on time and on budget. And she really focuses on that continuous improvement, and that really is a key factor in the success of an ERP implementation, because you want to leverage everything that you're improving and share that success with the rest of the team. So we're going to get into a little bit about that in the presentation. She really likes golf. She enjoys outdoors, and especially with her family and friends. So a little bit about Andy. Andy has been with Envent since October of 2020, and he has broad experience in Dortmund, North Dakota Scientific Group, Gas Analytical Systems, and Schlumberger. He holds a master's in financial economics from Stead Business School and the University of Oxford. So thank you, Andy, for sharing your knowledge and your expertise. And he also volunteers with various organizations. Calgary Jazz Orchestra is one of them. So thank you, Brenda and Andy. I'm going to go ahead and let you, Brenda, get started with some questions here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Adrian. Thank you, Andy. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. I think you'll find the story that Andy's going to share with us really compelling and very interesting. And just before everyone joined, I was saying to Andy, if I was on the side of a business trying to make this type of decision, I would hang on these words and learn from him on what went right, what they would do different, and how I could get a little bit better, I guess, decision making through some of the lessons that Andy's going to talk to us about. So thank you again, everyone. So Andy, Envent was formed in 2003. So congratulations on 20 years in business this year. That is fantastic. And your goal was meeting the growing demands of the oil and gas industry. And as we know, oil and gas fluctuates, things go up, things go down. There's all sorts of macro events that happen that change the world of oil and gas. But you differentiated yourself from the competition by supplying your products faster to customers. That was one of the big goals. So what gaps did the founders see that they were confident they could change?
Thanks for having me, Brenda. Participating in this question. Yes, what Envent was structured around a unique technology, had all of the challenges of having very technically minded people trying to run a company. Weren't necessarily people who brought in a strong business acumen, a strong data management, or even management. Just very, very bright individuals building a company around a product. And so we had all of the challenges and pitfalls that came with that, especially, as you've pointed out, a very competitive technological oil and gas commodity market from Canada to compete with the world. And a lot of our competitors are large multinational corporations that have very deep pockets and have been established and have a very recognizable brand and so on and so forth. So I guess there's another way of looking at it, and I thought this might be germane to our discussion today. We tick every box on business complexity from Syed Business School. that we are a designer, a service, we sell, we distribute, we have representatives, we deal in multi-currency, we deal in multiple languages, we have every possible complexity except being publicly traded. That's the only thing we don't have on the list, but we tick every other box. And as such, we have a strong need for not just real-time data, but accurate data, and it has to be distributed, disseminated over many places. We operate obviously out of Calgary, but we have an office in Houston, one in Mexico City, Mumbai, India, Beijing, China, and then reps all over in South America and the Middle East. So we have every possible kind of complexity and every possible need to have real, verifiably accurate data, and not operate on assumptions or stale data. Yeah. So we were kind of the perfect candidate for a better ERP. So not to get ahead of your question, but I hope that sets the stage a bit.
But I think that answer really gives the audience the breadth of what you're doing, right? And Adrian referenced how Acumatica, being a cloud solution, can be available from anywhere. It too operates in many languages and many currencies. So like you said, it does tick the box on a few of those. So
absolutely, yes.
So in the beginning and up until you had implemented Acumatica, what did you use to track your accounts payable, accounts receivable, payroll, manufacturing, inventory, purchasing, and how was this data tracked and used by each department?
Oh, another great question. I'm almost embarrassed to answer. We have a very primitive system, a lot of Excel spreadsheets, a lot of literally data written on clipboards, hanging on walls next to whiteboards. We were using a canned off-the-shelf accounting platform that was limited. It was limited in many ways, and it was really operated on by a handful of people and then vocalized by email. So we had that, and it really was an impediment to growth. There was an impediment to accuracy. It was kind of holding us on a plateau that we could not get past. And it was only really due to the failings of that product that we were left with no alternative but to go to the next layer and get something much more sophisticated to go with that. So.
And I don't think anyone should be embarrassed, and anyone that's on this call knows that business is run by Excel for many, many years. Like, who knew when Microsoft released Excel, it was going to become the business system of choice?
So true.
So, yeah.
So true. To answer the second half of your question there about which departments needed to know what, literally, we were small enough at the time that the purchaser was 20 feet away from the inventory manager, who was 20 feet away from the accounts payable technician, and so on. So we had the luxury of being small enough that we had enough proximity to one another that they could vocalize things back. Sorry, that was the second half of your question. I just wanted to address.
Yeah, thank you very much. And that leads to the next one about how did each department make those key business decisions and how were they tracked?
Managerially, it created a lot of problems. We had to concentrate decision-making very close to the top of the org chart. And that has, I think, as everybody in this call knows, huge limitations and massive problems that kind of go with that as an organization. You tend to make decisions with very dubious data. And when you do that, you can find yourself in a lot of trouble very quickly. Yeah. So that particular symptom probably drove the decision to come up to approach an ERP platform as the answer.
So what systems did you consider prior to your final selection?
We looked at Sage. We're looking primarily first as just an accounting platform solution. So I think we're looking at Sage and Great Plains, I believe. And there's an Oracle platform, I think it was NetSuite, I think we looked at as well. It tended to be a singular answer to a singular problem. It addressed the accounting side of things, but all so it was in that process of tire kicking other platforms. I think we also looked at SAP by design, or SBD as it was known at the time, which was kind of a lightweight version of the full enterprise level that they've made their name on. And it was that kind of in for a penny, in for a pound. If we're going to solve just an accounting problem that's of limited interest to us, let's solve our inventory control problems, supply chain, and the purchasing side, and basically, we still needed it as a CRM. We still needed other solutions. So it kind of came to a natural decision. Let's look at one solution for everything, and then we'll deal with the limitations, or we'll deal with the problems of implementation of that.
Thank you very much. It's interesting when you talk about supply chain, because that was before the pandemic, when
Yes.
we saw what can happen when supply chains get interrupted. And I can tell you, in my life, I mean, I've always had some issues, finding product and material, but nothing like what we saw through the pandemic. It was, just brought it. So again, when you can manage supply chain, it can certainly make a difference in your business.
Absolutely.
Thank you. So why did you select Acumatica? You've mentioned several other systems. Those are the competitors, but you made a choice about Acumatica. So what could you tell the audience around your selection of Acumatica over the others?
Sure. We actually had several teams look at it independent of one another, and to look at it from an engineering production point of view, to look at it from an accounting point of view, an inventory control point of view, logistics, and so on, and had them all kind of independently do their own research on what platform they thought was going to satisfy their particular and peculiar problems. And Acumatica was either the top or second from the top choice by independent team. And that in itself kind of really drove our next stage of due diligence of, well, if it's, is it going to address these things? And it's not just the bullet point on the brochure, to actually have a conversation with someone from Acumatica. And so our early conversations, we encountered people who just gave nothing but glowing reviews. As a matter of fact, we were almost getting suspicious that we couldn't find anybody who had anything bad to say about it. So it was, that's the cynical world we live in sometimes. But the truth of the matter is, we couldn't find anybody who had anything bad to say about it. And but we found plenty of less than pleasant stories connected with other platforms of the different. And then, not to be trite, but you never want to work for the software. You want the software to work for you. Yeah. A common kind of complaint was, once you're on some of these other Oracle-driven or SAP-driven platforms, you have to adapt your entire business around the way that software needs to see things, and then adapt to how it executes, how it turns data into information. You just have to live with the output that comes with it, unless you're willing to entertain high customization costs and so on. So that kind of came to a dead end for us when we were looking at making another platform into what we needed to be. And Acumatica was still, at that point, the only horse in the race for us. So the decision was easy at that.
That's really interesting. I like the way you say that you gave your individual teams some freedom to go out and evaluate based on what they need. And then at the end, it came together that Acumatica was either one or number two. So that's really interesting. So it wasn't a management decision or a small team. It was,
right. We tend to run as a company bottom up. It has to address the needs of the rank and file employees. I'm not so interested in, again, not to be cynical, but it's easy to sell software with great dashboards to executives, because they're the decision maker, they're the one with the checkbook, and making them happy at the top is probably not a bad way of approaching sales. But we, as a culture, we tend to do things from the bottom up. We have to make everybody happy from the bottom. And if the executives are the unhappy ones at the top, that's still a better situation.
That is one of the things I love about your organization. And I've told you many times, is that bottom-up approach, is that, the people that are doing the work are the ones that need to know how to do it, need to improve the processes. And they always have had, in my dealings with you, your full support on everything that's been proposed. So that's fantastic. So how do you go about choosing a partner for your implementation?
And again, to be honest, the first partner we had was only semi-successful for us. They geographically, they were on the other side of the planet. So we had this time lag between us asking the question, them reading our question, then replying. Days, every question involved 2 business days of time consumption. And it became problematic to the point where we started looking for someone more, at least in our time zone, but to find Aqurus, not just in our time zone, but in our backyard, really worked out very well for us. We thought that was a lucky strike in some ways, that it just worked out, that the stars aligned, and we found someone who understood oil and gas a lot better too than someone on the other side of the planet who weren't familiar with a lot of oil and gas terminology, that lexicon of the business acumen that goes with immediacy in the oil and gas world. But so luckily we kind of found each other through through our mutual searches.
Yeah, it's interesting because, Adrian mentioned the types of products, and when you talk to people that don't understand oil and gas and you say something about a chromatograph or a spectrometer, the glaze comes over their eyes,
Yes,
right? And
exactly.
it does have a language of its own, that's for sure.
It certainly does.
So the implementation started in 2019 before you joined the company, and then you joined in 2020.
Yes.
Since you've joined, how has business improved since you've consolidated all those siloed department processes into the ERP? And how does that real-time data assist you in making better business decisions?
Yeah, that's the heart of the matter, isn't it?
It is.
I was actually consulting to Envent at the time, so I was helping to drive the decision-making process.
Oh, cool.
Before I joined on as CEO. How has it helped? Immeasurably and in innumerable ways. Just having real-time information, just having accurate information, allowed us, and I say with some due modesty, that we have quadrupled in size in every appreciable business metric: staffing, gross revenue, AP, AR, everything. Every balance sheet item is 4 or 5 times what it was in 2019 when we started this journey. A lot of it was due to a lot of other changes, but the changes are only made possible by having good data and by having the buy-in of good data, having people included in the implementation of software, and gathering their input and their points of view and what they need and when they need it, and how often they need it, all of that sort of, all the kind of blood, guts, and feathers were all taken into account at the same time. And it allowed us as a company to make real-time decisions at a different level at the organization. So something as simple as, what are the min maxes in inventory? Hard to pin down at the best of times, very hard to pin down when you're doubling and tripling and quadrupling your order count going through your booked sales. So to be able to move those numbers and to replenish inventory in a measured way was only possible because of Acumatica. That the software, if that's all it did, it would have been worth every penny. But it was the CRM for all of our sales organizations inside and outside worldwide. They could all access that same database, all mutually inform the collaborative on what's going on with things. And it had a strange dividend in the sense that it was easy enough for somebody to take vacation time and have somebody look after their clients, because it was centralized data, and that was a real breakthrough for Envent in a lot of ways. Is that people could literally go away and know that things were still being looked after. Not possible except by lengthy phone calls and sporadic phone calls to try to do that without a cloud-based ERP. It allowed our manufacturing process to go far more smoothly. We had different bill of materials, different raw material consumption rates, basically every appreciable, as an economist, as a finance guy, I love ratios, and they're harder to do if you're just constantly sifting through piles of spreadsheets to assemble data. And by the time you've actually assembled your ratio, the data's 3 weeks old. So to have real-time numbers has been invaluable. Allowed us to make, I think, great decisions, at least really good ones. But it allowed us to mitigate a lot of risks. So we had the real values in front of us as a function.
You said a few things there that are really interesting, and some of them really resonate with me. Letting people have vacation and business continues, right? I mean, there's a business continuity portion to that statement. Life happens to people. They need time off for various reasons, and you cannot have the pressure of them needing to be on 24/7 when they're needing to do something else, whether it's a personal emergency, a vacation, some time, some downtime. It's very critical for human beings. So, and then risk mitigation, making decisions based on the right information. Like you say, they may not be the best, but at least they're being made on real-time data, and you can understand where you stand right now in that world of business.
Absolutely, Brenda. I think maybe from an ownership or a board level point of view, it was coming out of the dark ages in so many ways. It was everything. And I say this with some, kind of humility about the past. Everything was anecdotal. So we're doing pretty well. We think we're doing okay. Our sales cycle is improving. All these kind of more qualitative terms rather than quantitative.
Yeah.
That Acumatica gave us. We could say, we've improved 23.8% in our turnaround. Things like that. And that carries a little more water with an investment group and a governance group. Yeah. It has a lot more impact with it.
Yeah. Those statements alone, when you're talking with a board or a governance group, an investment group, I think we're doing okay. Okay, well, Andy, tell me a little more. What does okay mean to you? Because my definition of okay could be entirely different than your definition of okay. But when you put raw numbers out and you show graphs of charts, those fancy dashboards that you mentioned don't always drive business, but they do talk to investors and board members for sure.
Absolutely. And just to punctuate that point further, in the middle of a board meeting, I've been asked questions, how is this particular product changing in profile? I'll just call it right up, right there. And it can be a super specific question. And if you can give a real-time answer, this is as of right now, here is the answer. There's a certain amount of, wow, that's great. Like, I wish I had better questions to ask. Right? So, but that's how it goes sometimes, which is really good. And that's really been the power of Acumatica for us.
Yeah.
But I know we're going to talk a bit more about what Aqurus did for us in this, and just in terms of customization, but it's also just the overall advice of the order to implement things, the order to bring in modules, and to kind of save us from ourselves in a lot of way over just change fatigue, wanting everything tomorrow. I think one of the points that you and I've discussed it indirectly, but I think it's one that maybe people today sitting on this webinar might really appreciate is saving yourself from yourself because of change fatigue. It can't be measured as a real dollar value thing, but it should always be taken into consideration.
Yeah. And I think, that's the partnership that we have with Envent is, you asked for a lot and we said, absolutely, we can do that for you. However, we need to do it in a phased approach that makes logical sense to set you up for success.
Absolutely.
Since I've joined Aqurus, I can tell you, I've said to Murray many, many times, the fact that we get to work with small and medium business like yourself, Andy, and watch you grow and prosper brings nothing but just wonder to me every single day. And knowing that I may have a little piece of that and watch you grow, and you've mentioned your growth, and I have a little bit more question on growth, but it's just, phenomenal to watch. And if we've had a piece of that, it's just very rewarding for myself and our team for sure.
Absolutely. It's we can get into some of the really specifics about that if you wish, but please go ahead with the questions.
Okay, so you've mentioned growth, and at the very beginning you talked about your competition being, global and international and deep pockets. How have you managed to grow so quickly? You gave us some of those metrics, and are all of your competitors growing that quickly, or have you really hit a niche in this business and you're growing faster than the others?
It's a question, and I'm trying to kind of contain, trying to season this with some modesty too. But not all sales are based on price. Not all sales are based on technical capability. In our market space, a lot of sales are driven by turnaround time, how fast you can deliver. And people will pay twice as much if they can get it in a month instead of in 5 months. And not that they're impatient, is that a lot of analysis is regulatory driven. You can't do anything until you are measuring this and you are analyzing it and you can show that you are. So the real cost to a company to wait 5 months for something is enormous. It's in the tens of millions. So paying more for a product or a human service in the meantime is just money well spent. Because of that, we're light on our feet, and we can engineer a product, we can customize it, and we can deliver it in our sales cycle is down to probably 10 weeks. Our competitors, and particularly our large international competitors, they're more like 45 weeks to 55 weeks is their typical turnaround time from order to order fulfillment. Possible because of an ERP like Acumatica. We can see how long it's going to take to get inventory. We can see how long it's going to take to all the componentry that we need for manufacturing and everything. And everybody's talking, every group is talking to every other. So that order fulfillment turnaround as a metric has been shortened significantly against all of our competitors by a factor that's giving us a unique market space.
Yeah, that's excellent. That's excellent. And I do know from being in oil and gas, time is money, and I'm not sure of many other businesses that have the dollar impact when you're down. If you're not producing and getting product to market, you're not making money, and the regulatory requirements get stiffer every year. And I mean, it's a very good reason. We do not want those regulations not being met and met at a high standard for sure.
Exactly.
So a lot of your products are custom. So how does Acumatica assist you with this? And what are your biggest challenges as it relates to manufacturing and your bill of materials?
Another great question. We kind of liken ourselves as an easy, convenient metaphor to tailoring an existing suit. So 90% of the product is standard. It's the same for all the analyzers that go out, all the H2S analyzers. But what we have to tweak in the name of the customer is kind of like taking the suit off the rack and then measuring up somebody, adjust the hem, adjust the sleeve length, things like that. So instead of doing the whole thing as a custom job from cradle to grave, which is very time consuming, doing it as a bespoke operation is extremely inefficient. And it takes for very long turnaround times and so on. By standardizing most of the product, again, through Acumatica and through better data, through better inventory control, and then concentrating on the customization part when necessary, in the staging and the control of that scheduling, that's actually where we made our biggest impact. So the quality of our product remained very, very high, and we made the effort where the effort was needed rather than making the effort from cradle to grave. So.
That's excellent. Thank you. How is the CRM module performing for you, and what differences has it made in your business?
Huge. Every salesperson had their own Rolodex of clients, and it's extremely primitive. And you'd have to sit down with them and ask them on a kind of customer by customer basis what the history was, what they may have bought in the past. And you're relying on memory, and you're relying, as you say, on a 20-year install base history, which we all age, we all get a little less focused on what we did 15 years ago. And so it became problematic. What we have done since the implementation, everybody worldwide can see contact information, can see where we've had successes. And sometimes we'll have not unlike what we're doing today, we'll have a customer who has some very specific challenges in their production. We can line them up from our own client base with someone who's already solved the same thing, and we can kind of put them in contact with one another if everybody's willing to kind of share the challenges and the successes. That's incredibly helpful from our point of view, is to have that level of expertise and to be able to share customer victories with other customers, for sure.
Yeah, that's excellent. You've spoken a little bit about inventory control and purchasing, and in particular, as supply chains, have been challenging for many reasons. But how are those two modules performing for you?
Those are the most recent modules that we've implemented, and it's the staff themselves are the ones wrestling with getting their own skill set up. So we're still in the early days of rolling it out, particularly the manufacturing module and the product configurator module.
Yes.
Those two are the most recent additions to our whole system. And like everything that's been connected with doing an ERP, don't underestimate the amount of work you need to do on your side to get the software ready. You still have to gather a lot of information, and you have to kind of do some house cleaning as what's important going forward, and how much legacy stuff do you want to drag along with you. And so a lot of internal meetings, a lot of decisions being made on where to draw the line, and do we want to do point forward, or do we want to include a lot of historical information in our system? It's probably where I would get more into the advice level to someone considering doing this, is to have a really good grip on what you want to carry out of it forward, and really identify why it's important to carry what you want to carry forward. There's a lot of advantage just starting fresh with a brand new point in time. And keeping two systems alive for a period of time is not necessarily a horrible way to go. There are some real advantages to just say, we know that everything in system B is perfect and everything in system A is not. But the moment you kind of carry legacy forward, now you don't really know what, you have a broken clock is right twice a day, right? So.
Yeah. Well, that leads perfectly to my next question. As we all know, hindsight is 100%. So what changes would you make today if you were going to purchase and implement Acumatica, knowing what you know today?
I would have done it a lot sooner. I don't think we would have suffered as long with a failing limited product as we did. I think I would have just fast-tracked I wouldn't have, how we selected Acumatica, I wouldn't change, but the timeline of doing so, the starting fast-tracked. But I'd also probably would have been more generous with which modules we're going to start with on day one.
Okay.
Rather than going with a base system and then adding things to it over time, I probably would have included a lot more items on the front end. Just let's start as a manufacturer with the CRM, with all of these things all on day one, and then just go through all the company-wide pain at one time. I think there was a better leveraging of the advantage of the product doing it that way.
A comment you made was, don't downplay the amount of time it takes to implement. And, we tell that to all of our customers. We say for every hour we spend, as a customer, you need to spend 1.5 to 2. We will help you, we will guide you, we will challenge you. And we've done that a lot with you and your team, Andy. But at the end of the day, it's your business, and you need to know, the business processes, and we can model them and help you. But don't downplay. You can't hand over a project and say, come back to me when it's working, because we can't make it work. And that's
exactly right.
Yeah, one of the partnerships that we've got with you is that exact one, where we can challenge your team challenges us, and together we work along. We give you homework to do, and then we get back together and the homework's done, but there's more questions, and we just continue to evolve together. So
exactly. I think it's dangerous to kind of say this is what the final product has to look like. When you say day one, you end up limiting yourself, and you say, well, this is ultimately what we would like, but this is kind of what we need, and start marching down that road. And then other ideas emerge as you start seeing new data, and it'd be really nice to know. You've heard us say that countless times. Yeah. Well, now that we know A, B, and C, we'd really like to see D, E, and F, because we think it's really important now.
And I laugh at that, because we get into meetings internally to talk about what are we doing with Envent, and we go, darn, we showed them this, now they want more. And we go, that's fantastic, because that's exactly where we want to be, is, and you've challenged us to come up with some solutions, and with some of our good people and some help, we've been able to, deliver, if not everything, most things to help you with your business. So.
Absolutely, Brenda. And as you know, we kind of live by the motto, we're never seeking perfection. We're just looking at, constant and reasonable and steady improvements where needed, but we're never seeking perfection.
Yeah.
And never expecting perfection either.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And that's very true. That's very true. And I think that in itself is such a piece of wisdom, because I'm not sure if any of us would know what perfection looks like. Because I've never seen it, so you want to strive for the best and continue to evolve and grow. But I couldn't tell you anything I've ever done has been perfect, because I'm sure, someone else would look at it and do it even better. And I think those whys, why are you asking for that? Why it's really important to peel that onion back and get to the root of what the business problem is or business opportunity, and then drive to a good result to help with that.
That's so true. Absolutely true. And we're in the same business. We advise our customers.
Yeah.
How accurate do you want the number to be, and how often do you want it, and so on. But you can have anything, just not everything.
Yeah, that's very well said. That's very well said. Well, my last question is, can you share a little bit of how working with Aqurus has been? And do you have any advice for, customers, potential customers, on how to work with Aqurus in a successful way?
Yeah, that's kind of the meat of part of our, it's critical to our success, is having a partner like you. It's Acumatica is a large, huge corporation that designs software, but having the people who can answer questions, can tell you what's possible, can tell you, yeah, you might not really want to do that if you knew what went into it. Kind of those great guidance kind of questions. I think where our partnership has really succeeded is you're very, very good at managing the expectations and the time commitment and the personal sacrifice that will go into the answer of every question we have. And if you want to know the answer to that question, these are all the things you're going to have to provide. And depending on how often you want to answer that question, you might want to live with a monthly answer rather than a daily answer, because there might be, it might be just too onerous to satisfy. And again, as you said, you're very, very good at asking the why do you want it kind of questions, and then sometimes substituting a better, more practical solution to that. Well, instead of looking at that in real time, wouldn't weekly just satisfy, given the actual volumes that you're dealing with? And you're really, really kind of good at kind of talking us into maybe the good, better, best argument, that some of these things you want best, and some of these things you can live with good. And make the argument to us why you want it, and we'll counter it with try to talk you out of spending the time and money instead of talking us into spending more time and money. So that's been invaluable, and I think just your own experiences with your own customers, you've been excellent at kind of bringing your own background expertise into. Yeah, I know why you need to ask that question. I know why you want it. So yeah, I agree with you. Let's do that. Let's do these 3 items off your list of wants and your wish list. But these other things, yeah, let's wait and see. You might not need them after we answer the first few questions on this. You might have different questions. So you've been really good at kind of keeping that dialogue back and forth. Let's work on this and we'll see where it goes before you make too many decisions too far over the horizon. So I think that's been really good. And that's really where I think the strength of it has been. And you've always been really good at, if anything, coming in early and under budget, which is in our world is such a rarity. You really stand out in that way as an outside consulting helping us. It's extraordinary.
Well, thank you, Andy, again, for your knowledge, your wisdom, your expertise here. Adrian, I'll turn it back to you. And if there's any questions, we can answer those now.
So, great presentation, you guys. Andy, awesome to hear your experience and your working with Aqurus. And I had a question myself. So if you guys, you were when you established a company back in 2003, I believe, correct?
Yep.
your goal when you established the company was to be more capable to meet the demand of your oil and gas customers. And that meant having products on hand to supply to them better than the competition. So if I'm understanding correctly, the end result of implementing Acumatica is helping you to meet that goal, because your sales, you could see, you have that visibility of what sales is quoting, and you can now predict what you need to purchase in order to meet that demand better.
Absolutely.
And so now that collaboration with the sales team and the entire production team, everybody's coming together in order to get those products to the customers faster than the competition. Therefore, you're able to grow, basically.
Absolutely. Well, and there's another kind of layer to that onion. And we're at the point where we have our purchaser and our inventory manager talking with outside sales on what they're quoting. So when we know what they're quoting, we can position inventory to match it in the event that we get the sale. And there's a certain amount of, we're 90% certain, or we're only 20% certain. So, we take it under advisement, and they have been, that little piece of information isn't even a phone call anymore. They can see the quotes and they know what's going on, and they just position the inventory levels to match that. Now, when you're a small, mid-sized company, you don't necessarily want all of your working capital tied up in inventory. You want, I'm not saying to run lean either, but there's a reasonable number in that. It differs from company to company. But for us to find that reasonable number, we needed good data. In order to have the good data, we needed people who drove that equation to demand it. But to just plug those two ends of the circuit together, and just the salespeople providing information in real time and the purchaser looking at it in real time and making decisions, has been, again, that's probably been the biggest crowbar at getting us to have right levels of inventory over anybody else. Absolutely.
And so you're able to be more proactive than, whereas before, if I'm understanding correctly, you were more reactive.
Yeah, exactly.
And this has put you in a much more competitive position. And with that said, I want to thank everybody for joining us today. We know that time is hard to come by, and we really appreciate you spending it with us. I think it's been extremely educational to be able to kind of walk through Andy's journey with, but not only Acumatica, but 90% of ERP implementation is the expertise of your provider, and knowing how to kind of guide you through that process and make sure you're leveraging everything about the system. So it's been great to learn how you guys have worked together, and that you're continuing to improve. And that's the name of the game. Absolutely. So thank you, Brenda and Andy. Did you have any closing remarks, Brenda? Fantastic job, both of you.
Oh, thank you. No, I think the only thing I would, say in closing is a thank you to everyone. But with Envent, we're not done. Right now, we've probably got 5 or 6 other projects in the hopper. We're working on a couple of small ones now. So I think it's what Andy says, you just continue those 12 things on the list. What are the top 2 or 3? Let's work on them and see what then bubbles up to the top of the list. And we collaboratively work on that and then deliver solutions and continue to go forward. So
that's the great thing about ERP, is that constant opportunity to make it better.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to add that another piece of advice I'd give someone, depending, obviously, everybody's situations, but we brought in another consultant who is just going to be our shepherd, our border collie, in helping keep people fulfilling what's needed on our side of the equation, so that Aqurus could do what they needed to do on their side. So rather than using traditional management to look at this as another thing that needs to get done, having an outsider kind of guide us along that way has been really invaluable as well. I would certainly advocate, depending on the situation, that if you have a lot of data and people are at 80, 85% of their capacity for what they're doing already, you don't want to push them to the straining point. So having someone come in and just do that dimension of an implementation is not a bad way to go. It's money well spent and great risk mitigation.
Yeah, I agree. That's helped a lot too. Having that single point of contact at your company and at our company, we work well together. And then, you know, he'll give me homework, I'll give him homework, and we come back together with answers and next steps. And between us, we're able to keep the teams on target, which has enabled us to deliver, as you mentioned, on time and under budget in most cases. So
Absolutely. Great.
Okay, well, thank you, Andy. Have a good rest of your day and a good weekend. Thank you, and everyone for joining us.
No,
All right,
you,
everybody, take care.
Thank
Wonderful.
you.
All right, take care.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.